Welcome back to my channel, guys. For those of you who are new, I'm the marketing nomad. Alright, so today we've got a pretty interesting topic, and that is how do you build your personal brand in 2020? Now, before we get into the video, let me first take a second and talk a little bit about why I've used the word build and not create. Now, whether you know it or not, each one of us, we actually have our own personal brand. It exists from the minute we're born, and it continues to exist until the end of time. However, for some people, it is more amplified because they make consistent efforts to amplify it. So, in short, you don't create a personal brand already exists. What you do is that you build on it, you amplify it so that people can identify you a certain way more clearly. Alright, so that's basically what we're going to talk about in this video. This video is going to be a little bit long for the sole reason that there's a lot of steps that involve in personal branding. I did think about making this into 2 videos, but at the same time, I do want to put all my information into one video. So I'm going to sit through this and make one whole video. I don't know how long it's going to come, but to be honest, I think that each of these steps are what I've gone through personally, and I think that they are super important. Just on a side note, I want to tell you that the last point that I do talk about is so important, because even if you follow the rest of my steps, if you don't follow my last one, you're going to be unsuccessful, and I can guarantee it. All right? Without further ado, guys, let's get down to business. Alright guys, so the first thing that you really need to do is to identify what do you bring to the table. What is something that you can consistently deliver long term? Now, I know that a lot of people tell you to make a list of 10 things, and I don't agree with that for the sole reason that A, when you're first starting out, you're not going to be able to come up with 10 things that you can consistently deliver. B, even if you miraculously do come up with 10 things, it's going to just stress you out, because at that point, you yourself are not going to be sure if you can deliver it long term. So I highly recommend just coming up with 3 things. Just start with 3 things that you can consistently deliver and you know is a fundamental core to your personality. For me, I'll give you an example. The first one that I came up with was value-packed information. No matter what I do, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on LinkedIn, any information that I do give is value-packed. Now, the second value that I came up with was creativity. Whatever I do, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's coming up with those boxes over here, or coming up with the kind of content that I want to do, or Instagram or LinkedIn, whatever it is, I'm pretty sure that I do add a twist to it or some sort of creativity to it. The third one that I was absolutely 150% sure that I would absolutely deliver was some sort of fun or humorous element to my content. And these 3 define who I am as a person, so it was very easy for me to come up with just 3 things. Yes, over time, I have built on that list, but when I first started, I started with just 3 things and I focused on hitting those 3 points. When you actually get involved and you start creating content, when you are out in the field basically branding yourself, there will be more things that you can bring to the table. There will be more things that you realize that you can actually consistently maintain long term. And at that point, it's okay to add it in. But when you're starting out, I highly recommend just 3. And let me give you an example. So when I first started out, I was at 3. And today, I think I have added high energy, because all of my videos, all of my content, whether I'm showing up on my stories, whether I'm showing up on LinkedIn, there's always a certain energy level that I bring to the table. And that, again, is who I am as a person. But when I started out, that was not one of the points that came right to my head. Again, I'm resourceful. That's another value that I bring to the table. Another thing that I have realized over time is that I'm warm and friendly, and that's the kind of personality that I bring to the table. That is something that I can maintain long term. The last point that I have added, and that was pretty recent, is that I am absolutely raw as a person. As much as possible, I'm talking about my emotions. I'm telling you guys about the mistakes I've made. I'm telling you about my feelings. And to me, that is a core part of my personal branding as well. So these are the few values that it has taken me some time to build and to understand that I can deliver it long term, just because over time I've understood that these are a part of my personality and a part of how I want my brand to be seen. So start out with 3, and then you can of course build it over time. Now, the second step is to come up with a list of don'ts. And the reason why you come up with a list of don'ts rather than do is because your list of do's, if I can call it that, will definitely be much longer, and it just gets complicated over time. But the list of things that you are not going to do is absolutely going to be smaller, and it is going to be that much easier to follow your rules. So I personally make a list of things that I will never do. For example, on any of my pages, you will never see me talk anything about politics. I will not talk about controversial topics. So these are things that I am very well aware that I will never talk about. So list of don'ts is always a good thing to do. All right, so now we come on to step number 3. And step number 3 is to pick a few niches. Now, I know a lot of people out there say, you know, you should pick one niche and stick to it, and it's just so much better. Personally, it didn't work out really well for me. And the reason is this: when you stick to one niche, it may or may not click with your audience, and you need to be able to have that flexibility and experiment a little bit. So when I first started out, I just had one niche, and that was marketing strategy. Over time, as you guys can see, I have evolved slightly and I have widened my preferences, to be honest. I have not changed my niche. Don't get me wrong, I've not changed my niche, but I have just widen my preferences. So there are a couple of things that I do talk about. There are a couple of things that I do niche in, I would say. So that is a small tip that I do have for you. Don't stick to one niche. Experiment with so many different kinds of niches. I would say experiment with like 2 or 3 and figure out where you want to kind of shuffle between. And that's always a healthy space to be in, because when you focus on just one niche, it can get too intense for you. And this is something that I've learned from personal experience. So choose about 2 to 3 niches and experiment as much as possible. You never know what clicks with you and with your audience as well. So if you were to quote me, I would say, don't change your niche, just widen them. All right, and that not only gives you the flexibility, that also gives people an option to choose what they like. And I always think that's a really comfortable spot to put my audience in. Okay, so the fourth step is to pick your colors. So now we're kind of getting into the actual branding aspect of it. So the next step is to pick your colors, and this doesn't have to be complicated. For me, it was literally just picking my favorite color and working off of that. For me, teal represents passion. It represents the passion that I have for marketing and my love for doing what I do. So for me, that is what the color speaks to me. I chose yellow, and that particular shade of yellow, because for me, that represented my high energy. I also do have black as a part of my branding color palette, and for me, that represented elegance and the classiness, and that is just who I am in real life. And if you have to kind of translate that into my business life or my business world, that is the professionalism that I bring to the table. So these were the 3 colors that I have picked. As I said, you can just pick one color that represents who you truly are. Now, if that's a little complicated for you, what you can do is you can go online, go to Google, and just type in what does each color represent. And there are a bunch of Google results that you will be able to look for, and you'll be able to see that each color means something. And if a color speaks to you, pick that color. You can choose 1, you can choose 2, you can choose 3. Don't choose more than 3. Just a friendly advice, because that would just complicate things even more. So stick to about 1 to 3, I would say. Even 1, I've seen people work so fantastically with just one color, just because that color will always match with white, will always match with black. So you technically have 3 colors even if you choose 1 color. So when I first started out, I started out with just 1 color, and I was able to add the remaining 2 colors after a month. And of course, I've stuck with that. But what I'm trying to say is, when you're starting out, it's okay to change. It's okay to add something new, because at that point, you're still figuring it out. Don't feel that you have to pick something and stick with it forever. It's not like that. And that brings me to my next step. And that is, when you are deciding your logo, understand that your logo can change. When you first start out, your first draft is probably not the one that you're going to stick with. Okay, my first logo is definitely not the one that I have today. So basically, for point 4 and 5, what I do want to say is that don't be too stuck on these 2 points. Understand that these can change. You can change it at any time. and don't get stuck trying to do this and not moving on to the next step and not taking a leap with your personal branding. So now that we've hopped on to step 5, also when you're talking about your logo, it should represent who you are as a person. And maybe not everyone's going to understand what that means, all right? But for you personally, every time you look at that logo, it should mean something for you. So if you look at my logo, it's one teal box, and then there's a yellow box outside, and then there's a black box outside, and then there's PM written in the middle. So what my logo means is that even though there are certain confinements to marketing, as in I have to stay within the box, and that is the teal box that you see, I will always bring something more to the table. I will always be thinking out of the box. And that is what my entire logo means. And the fact that I've written the PM is hand-drawn, it means that it will always be my personal touch to whatever marketing techniques or strategy that I bring to the table. So basically, that is what my logo means. And every time I look at it, it reminds me of what my values are and what my brand stands for. So the logo has to mean something to you. So make sure you are not just randomly taking any logo off the internet. Make sure that you think a little bit about it and find something that fires you up inside. And that is what my logo does for me. Again, I do want to reiterate that the logo that I first started out is not the logo that I have today. I changed my logo at least 3 times in a month, in a span of a month. And the logo that I have today, I've held on to it for about, I think, 10 months now. I think it's close to 10 months. Initially, I think this is what I want to talk about. It's going to be so hard to make a decision, but I just want to tell you, go ahead with it. It doesn't matter. You can change it at any given point of time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself and just go for it. Now we hop on to step number 6. Now step number 6 is basically to choose the platform that you want to kind of establish your presence in. And I recently actually spoke to someone, and he was kind of telling me how he's not really a social media person. And here's my thoughts on that. While social media is a good place to accelerate your personal branding, it is not the only option that you do have. There are different ways to amplify this personal branding that you do have, whether it is people meeting you in person, or whether it's on your website, whether it's in your blogs. So there are different places that you can showcase or you can amplify this personal branding. If you're not so comfortable with it, there are other avenues that you can take a look at. So I think I just wanted to make sure that that was out there. When you're choosing your platforms, make sure you stick to just 2 when you first start out. Now, when it comes to personal branding, your messaging is also a part of your branding. Now, different platforms, especially when you're talking about social media platforms, each of these platforms actually have their own kind of target audiences, which means you have to be changing your marketing messages for each of these platforms. And when you already have one aspect of your personal branding as a variable, and you actually keep multiple platforms, it's just going to confuse people. So it's going to confuse you too as well when you're creating content and when you're just trying to establish your presence. So I would honestly suggest just focusing on 2. Now for me, I only focus on YouTube and Instagram. While I do have presence on maybe say LinkedIn and Facebook and a little bit on Pinterest, is something that I recently started. So even though I do have presence over there, it is not where my attention is. My attention mainly focuses on YouTube and Instagram, and it's pretty clear. So just to reiterate, choose 2 platforms that you think can help you amplify or accelerate your brand presence. Now, step number 7. After you've established which platforms that you want to kind of establish your brand presence, the next thing is more of visual branding, and that is to put your colors every single place you can find. Now, putting your colors everywhere is kind of a form of visual branding where your audience, before they even analyze your personality, before they even understand who you are as a person, they have something to kind of associate themselves with. And those are your brand colors. So make sure wherever you are always consistently putting your brand colors out there. If you take a look at my Instagram, if you take a look at my YouTube thumbnails, all of them have consistent colors. So wherever I am, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on my website, whether it's on my blog, Instagram, YouTube, you absolutely know that if you see those 3 color combinations, it is me. It obviously is me. And that actually comes with consistent branding of your colors. Visual branding is extremely powerful. Do not underestimate it. So that is step number 7 for you. Up until now, let's kind of refresh what we have learned so far. Step number 1 was more about identifying the core values, who you are as a person. What do you want to bring to the table? That, I would say, would be the intangible aspects of your personal branding. The second part we talked about was branding and your colors, your logo, the more tangible aspects of your personal branding. The third part we talked about was more about deciding which platforms you want to establish your presence in, where do you want to be, and how do you want to portray your colors and the tangible aspects of things. Now, the last phase of your entire personal branding journey is to tie all of step 1 to 7 together into a marketing strategy. So step number 8 is about figuring out what exactly are your goals. What are you trying to achieve with your personal branding? For me, personally, I want to help businesses all over the world with their marketing. My second goal is to make people understand that even though some parts of marketing is elaborate and it's basically a huge chunk by itself and people do get overwhelmed by it, there is a small part of marketing that you yourself can tweak, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a marketer who's just starting out. And those are the things that I want to bring to people's attention. My third goal is to show people that you can truly be passionate about something and make a career out of it. So those are my 3 goals basically behind my personal branding. So whenever you see me talk about any aspect, whether it's on my YouTube videos, whether it's on my Instagram, I am always hitting at least one of these goals. These are the 3 things that are the drive behind whatever I do. And that is something you need to identify. What exactly are you trying to achieve with your personal branding? If you go without any goals, you're not going to be that very successful with your overall structure of your personal branding. So identifying your goals is also very, very important. Then we hop on to the next part of the marketing strategy phase of your personal branding journey, and that is to define your target audience. For me, I'm more interested in building a community. So the people who I attract are more going to be focused on building a community, being a part of a community. So those are the kind of people that I want to attract. And for me to attract that kind of people, that is also the way that I behave. I talk a little bit about my life. I talk a little bit about building a community. I make people feel included in what I do. So that is the kind of approach that I take personally, because that is the kind of audience that I want to attract. For you, it might be something else, and that is what you have to identify. What are your goals and what are the kind of people that you want to attract? What is the kind of atmosphere do you want to create? Do you want to create a community? Do you want to create a maybe mentor and student kind of relationship or atmosphere? So those are things that you really need to think about. Now, step number 10 is to take the leap and to just keep putting your content out there. And to me, this is by far the most important step. And the reason is this: up until now, it's basically the back end stuff. You're not really being vulnerable. You're just tying up a few things. And this stage is probably going to be the most emotionally exhausting stage, because you are going to be putting yourself out there. You're going to be showing who you are. You're going to be showing that you're not perfect. You're going to be showing that sometimes you can make mistakes. And these are all part of this entire journey. And that's something that I do want to put a little bit of attention to. It doesn't matter if, your brand colors are not up to the mark, or, you've not yet settled on a logo. It doesn't matter. Start putting your content out there. You will slowly figure everything out. If you wait until, you're 100% ready, believe me, you're not going to be. That is what I do want to reiterate, and I do want to keep telling people that just put yourself out there. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Because at the end of the day, if you're not putting out content, you are wasting valuable time. Alright, so that wraps up step 10 for you. Now step 11 is more of a mindset change, and I think that this is by far the most important step. If you are not aware of this step, it doesn't matter if you do 1 to 10, you are not going to be successful. And that is to not be afraid of putting your personality, yourself, your brand voice out there. A lot of this has to stem with confidence, yes, but a huge chunk of it is to not be afraid of being vulnerable. And I think that a huge part of my personal branding journey has been me being okay with being vulnerable, if that makes sense. I hope I said that right. It's probably going to take me a little bit time to say this properly because I want to form the right sentences in my head. This means so much to me, and I'm pretty sure it will resonate with you as well, is because for the most part of my life, I have had a small group of people tell me that I was not good enough. A certain part of my personality would never be accepted by people, would actually piss people off. While 99% of people in my life were okay with that personality or that side of me, and they actually loved me for it. And this human tendency to kind of zone in on people, on the people who are talking negative and just believing what they say is true. And I gotta tell you this, I gotta tell you a small experience that I recently had. And of course, those 4 people are out of my life for good, and took me 8 years to get to this point. Yes, took me 8 years to get to this point where I have removed all the toxic people out of my life. But that journey of me being so afraid of showing my emotions, of being vulnerable, of being raw, was so hindered because of just those 4 people. And there was a point where I said, you know, I'm gonna put myself out there and I'm just gonna be me. I'm just gonna do me. Whatever it is, however it is, whoever's gonna like me will like me, whoever doesn't, they will leave my life, and I'm okay with that. And recently, someone actually reached out to me. I'm probably gonna cry about this, but recently someone reached out to me, someone I don't know, I have never met them, and I was talking something about my personal life on Instagram. I think it was about talking about my journey about buying this camera, for that matter, and how it's taken me so long, and I'm so proud of it, I'm so happy. And basically I was just showing my emotions, I was being vulnerable. Someone reached out to me and they said that the way you showcase your emotions, I've never seen anyone do that before. It absolutely resonates with me, and I love that you are being so raw about your journey. Again, another incident, someone has actually reached out to me and told me that I like that you talk about the not so pretty stuff about this journey, because you see everything that's so pretty, everyone puts up a face, but when you talk about the not so pretty stuff, it makes me feel that you are real, you are authentic. And for me to hear that after hearing a huge part of my life, you know, of people telling me that of just those 4 people basically, telling me that I'm too vulnerable, I'm too raw, I'm too blunt, I'm too honest. And suddenly I have a group of people who love me because of that. They're following me because of that side of me. They respect the fact that I'm raw, I have emotions, I'm vulnerable. That brings me to say that in this personal branding journey, just be authentic, just be you, just be vulnerable, just put yourself out there. And this is something that I have learned. The best person who can pull you off is you. It's not going to be anyone else. Stop copying another influencer, stop copying other people's personal branding, because you will never be able to pull them off for the sole reason that you are not them. The best person you can pull off, and I'm gonna say this again because I'm super, super proud of this quote that I came up with, and that is, the best person who can pull you off is you, no one else. So make sure whatever you're doing, you are putting your real self out there. And just like in life, whoever is meant to be in your life will gravitate towards you. Whoever your personality resonates with, they will gravitate towards you. Stop trying to be someone else and drawing in the wrong people, because at some point you're gonna let slip your true self. It's going to happen. And at that point, you're going to be facing a lot more hate because you were not authentic than if you were just authentic all along and you slipped up and you messed up and you showed that you are not perfect. And basically that's my point to this, is don't be afraid to be you. The reason why people copy other people is because they are so afraid of being themselves. They are so afraid of people's opinion of how they're going to be seen as. And you need to identify that insecurity and take it out of your life if you want to be successful with personal branding. The reason why some people are so successful with amplifying their personal branding is because they are themselves. Their personal branding is who they are, so they don't really have to struggle with faking things or making things up. So that was my sheet note flying away. Okay. And like being vulnerable also wants me to get to my next point, and that is with personal branding, it's not something that you can say, okay, I want a journey just like that person or just like that influencer. It's not, for the sole reason that they are a completely different person, and the kind of people that they attract is going to be different from the kind of people that you attract. And you can't always have the exact same journey. So it's a lot about you figuring things out for yourself. You're kind of alone in this journey. So it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to second guess yourself sometimes. But the important thing is to just keep going. Your first idea is going to suck. Your subsequent ideas might even suck. But the point is that a huge chunk about this journey is more about learning new things about yourself and figuring out how to showcase that or how to amplify that to your audience. And as time goes, you will eventually figure things out. But until then, don't give up. And even to this day, I don't think I've figured things out. I think there are a lot of things that I'm learning too. And that is, I think, the best part about the personal branding journey. So don't give up. And I don't know, I'm thinking if I have any last words to say about personal branding, and that's pretty much it, guys. It's a journey that's unique to yourself. So make sure you show that uniqueness to your audience. Don't be fake, be authentic, be genuine, don't copy people, just be yourself, and you will totally ace this game. All right, guys. That brings me to the end of this video. I hope you guys like this. Alright guys, if you found this video useful, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, guys, because that supports me in doing what I love doing. Alright guys, what else did I miss out? Yes, if you have any video requests, don't forget to put it in the comments below and I will get right to it. What else? Stay safe, stay healthy, all the usual stuff, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye, guys! And here's my thoughts on that. You don't, while more complicated, it's okay. No, that's not what I want to say.